All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar for the African American Civil Rights Network, also known as Acorn, in partnership with the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, also known as ASALH. We also have the pleasure of hearing from our NPS partners today from the State Tribal Local Plans and Grants, also known as STILPEG, later in our presentation. My name is Ashley Adams. I am the National Coordinator for Acorn. I am joined today by Ariel Roy, our Acorn Partner Historian from Assala, and Mary Shell from STILPEG, who you will hear from later in our presentation. Today, we are also joined by Sylvia Cyrus, Executive Director of Assala, and our NPS Principal Historian and Deputy Federal Preservation Officer, Dr. Turkiya Lowe. We are also joined by Terrence Friday from Assala, who will be monitoring our chat today. For this webinar, we do ask that you please turn off your cameras and mute your microphones as we are recording. For today's session, we are joined by our sign language interpreters, Dominique and Annabelle, for those of you who may need assistance. We will also have closed captioning for today's presentation. We do also ask that you hold all of your questions until the end, where we will have about 10 to 15 minutes for Q&A. Please feel free to put all of your questions in the chat. We will address them during the Q&A portion of our presentation. Any questions that we are not able to answer today during our presentation will be sent out through a follow-up email. I will turn it over to Ms. Sylvia Cyrus.
Greetings. ASALH, the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, is a proud partner of the National Park Service and the African American Civil Rights Network, Acorn. We were delighted to be able to say that this program of the National Park Service was announced at our 2019 annual conference in Charleston, South Carolina. Enjoy the presentation, and if we can support or help you in any way, please stay in contact with Ariel Roy, our historian. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. Dr. Lowe, would you like to make any opening remarks?
Yes, sorry that I'm not on camera right now. My internet is limited and it's not allowing my video. I just want to say for the National Park Service that we are excited to partner with the Association for the Study of African American Life and History as we implement the African American Civil Rights Network Act of 2017. I am delighted to have you here participating, learning more about the network, its benefits, and how to apply, as well as highlighting some of the opportunities for members through our National Park Service grants programs. I'd love to thank Mary Shell and Ashley Adams, who is facilitating you for this session today as we move forward. So Ashley, you can begin.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lowe. We have a wonderful presentation for you today. We are going to start off with a video. You all are in for a special treat because not many people have actually seen this. So we are going to flip it to that.
Oh, freedom. Oh,
won't you celebrate with me what I have shaped into a kind of life?
Oh, freedom.
I had no model. Born in Babylon, both non-white and woman. What did I see to be? except myself.
And before I be a slave,
I made it up.
I'll be buried in my own grave. Go home to my Lord and be free. Oh, freedom.
Here on this bridge between starshine and clay, my one hand holding tight my other hand.
Freedom over me. And before I be a slave,
Come celebrate with me that every day something has tried to kill me and has failed.
I'll be buried in my grave. I'm going home to my Lord and be free.
As we are transitioning from that video, today's webinar will begin with the introduction of the African American Civil Rights Network, along with the origins of the network and our goals, so our current members, who is eligible to apply, network benefits, the application process. It will then be followed by a presentation from our SteelPEG partners, along with a presentation from our partners at Assala. And turn to the next slide. Acorn currently has 127 members. Thank you. Acorn currently has 127 members with a total of 19 of those, in total, and 19 of those members are NPS units. We have a vast network that spans across the United States. We also hold several partnerships with entities including the University of South Carolina, the Association of African American Museums, also known as AAAM, and Assala, who was mentioned earlier, and you will also hear from our partner historian, Ariel Roy, today. We also have NPS partners, including state, tribal, local plans and grants, also known as SteelPEG, and they will also be talking further about the grant opportunities that we have available. Next slide, please. So, the African American Civil Rights Network was established in 2017 as an act and authorizes for the National Park Service to coordinate and facilitate federal and non-federal activities to commemorate, honor, and interpret the history of the African American Civil Rights Movement, the significance of the civil rights histories and their stories as a crucial element to the evolution of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and the relevance of the African American Civil Rights Movement in fostering the spirit of social justice and national reconciliation. The goals of Acorn are to recognize the importance of the African American Civil Rights Movement and civil rights histories, along with the sacrifices made by people who fought for equality, and the relevance of the civil rights movement to today. Next slide, please. So the goals of the Act are laid out as follows, are accomplished as follows. The National Park Service will create the African American Civil Rights Network. We will review studies and reports to complement existing studies of historical importance of the civil rights movement, produce educational materials related to the civil rights movement, and create an official logo, which was featured in our first slide. Next slide, please. All right. So, network eligibility. To be included in the African American Civil Rights Network, or ACORN, your resource must meet a certain criteria: a verifiable connection to the history of the African American civil rights and the civil rights movement. Historic properties must be listed or eligible for the National Register of Historic Places. You will also need a letter of owner permission. And national parks units and programs must relate to the history of the African American civil rights movement between 1939 and 1968. Next slide, please. So we have here our network member map. As you can see, we have members all across the United States. We have plenty of members on our East Coast. However, we are looking to expand into our Midwestern and Western states, as we know that the civil rights movement was happening everywhere. So, if you know of anyone or if you are aware of any civil rights activity within the Midwestern states, encourage them to apply or to reach out to us. All right. So, an example of network resources include properties. So, a few examples that we have here are the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, as well as the home of Edgar and Miley Evers in Jackson, Mississippi, the home of NAACP legal counsel and prominent educator A.P. Terrell in New Orleans, and last, the home of J.D. and Ethel Shelley and their family in St. Louis, Missouri, who was the subject of the 1948 landmark Supreme Court case on housing discrimination. If your property is, oh, I'm sorry, could you move to the next slide, please? Thank you so much. So, for a property, you must be on the National Register in order for you to be eligible for a property. Um, Eligibility for determination um, in the National Register and or eligibility determination is requires communication from your state historic preservation office, also known as your SHPO. Our next resource are facilities. Facilities can be considered modern properties that do not have to be listed or eligible for the National Register, but they do have to be dedicated to collecting and interpreting the history of the movement in that time. That could be anything from an archive, a library, to a museum, or even a memorial, such as the John Hope Franklin Reconciliation Park in Tulsa, Oklahoma, pictured here. Our last resource that you can qualify under is a program. A program can be anything from a tour to a performance, educational curriculum, website, art installation, or any other way that the history of the African American civil rights movement is presented or explained to the public. For example, we have the mural of Marian Anderson's 1939 performance to an integrated crowd on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. And then we also have of course, the the Gullah Geechee Cultural Heritage Corridor, as well as the NPS travel itinerary. So, some of the benefits of becoming a network member includes non-commercial usage of the trademarked network logo, limited assistance or guidance with production of education materials, limited technical assistance and resource sharing through cooperative agreements, partnerships, and subject matter expertise when available. We also have potential funding opportunities as a member of Acorn. We have, of course, the NPS State Local Tribal Plans and Grants Division, or STILPEG. Under them, we have the African American Civil Rights Grant, HBCU grants, History of Equal Rights, or HER grants, and underrepresented communities grants. It's important to note that you do not have to be a member of ACORN in order to qualify for the STILPEG grants. However, in order for you to qualify for the Association of African American Museums, or AAAM grant, you do have to be a network member. So, how do you apply? The applications are accepted on a rolling basis, and this is not a competitive program. It is important to note that this program is free to the public. We do not require any type of annual fee or any type of re-enrollment. And you are required, excuse me, to create an online profile via the e-application to submit an application. The process takes 30 business days. You are required to have a letter of owner consent, whether you are applying for a property, a facility, or a program. If you are applying as a property, you must have a national register listing or eligibility is required. Next slide, please. Um, so the application is, of course, the e-application, as I mentioned. You must create a user profile. There is a link to the application on this screen, as well as a QR code. If we want to stop here for just a moment to give people a chance to scan that QR code. All right. Next slide, please. All right. For your letter of owner consent, you can either have a letter of owner consent as an individual or as a entity. If you are an individual who owns a particular property or a program, then you will use the template for the individual. If you are an entity such as a government entity or own it with more than one person, then your letter of owner consent, you can use the template that we have linked here for a entity. Next slide, please. All right. So, if you have any additional questions or you need help with your application, please feel free to reach out to us at AACRN at NPS.gov. We do have a QR code here to the African American Civil Rights Network website as well as the application portal. I will now turn it over to Miss Mary Shell.
Thank you, Ashley. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Mary Shell. I'm a grants management specialist with Still Pig. As you can see, we shortened this kind of mouthy division name into STLPG, and we embrace the pig. Next. I want to talk to you about some of our competitive grant programs that we manage and start with the African American Civil Rights Program. This is a really wonderful program. It provides funds for both preservation and history projects. We can help with rehabilitation of properties as well as history projects like doing National Register nominations or exhibits about civil rights history. The properties that we work on with this grant, as you've been hearing Ashley say, need to be listed or eligible for the National Register for their association with the struggle for civil rights. The eligible applicants for this program include state governments, tribal governments, local governments, and nonprofits. Next. Fortunately, this is a growing program, and we will have $24 million again in 2024 to grant out to applicants. One beautiful thing about the program is no match is required. We can provide up to $75,000 for history projects and up to $750,000 for preservation projects. The types of work you can do on the building include everything from repairing windows to adding new kind of mechanical systems, roof, just about everything that you would need to make that building functional. We will have the application period for African American Civil Rights grants coming up this summer. Underrepresented Communities Grant is another really good program that focuses on history projects. We are really working hard to grow the amount of National Register listings related to African American resources and other minority communities and other resources that just haven't been included. And we are doing a great job in starting to grow those properties. These funds can be used to do surveys and documentation that leads to National Register nominations of properties and sites. No match is required for this program either, and we will have $1.25 million again in 2024 to grant out. These grants can also go up to $75,000, like the history grants in the AACR category. The applications will be available this spring. And as with the other grants, state offices, SHPOs, Tribal Historic Preservation Offices, TIPOs, certified local governments, and nonprofits may apply. The History of Equal Rights program is smaller, and it is dedicated to just preservation or rehabilitation grants. The program requires that the properties be listed or eligible for the National Register because of their association with the struggle for equal rights. We will have $5 million in 2024 to grant out. There is no match required for these grants either, and you can request up to $750,000. We will also allow you to use some of the rehabilitation budget to do pre-preservation work, which would be your architectural plans or any engineering studies that are required. These applications opened this February and will be closing soon, but we should have another round next year. Historically Black Colleges and Universities, or HBCU grant program, is our oldest competitive grant program that was started in 2006. We will have $11 million again in 2024 to grant out to properties that are owned by the HBCU. The properties that are worked on must be listed or eligible for the National Register. We can do preservation work on properties. We can also help with listing or updating National Register nominations for these buildings or campuses. We can also help with campus preservation plans. The applications will be available this summer. No match is required, and the same types of ranges where you can go up to $750,000 for a preservation project and $75,000 for the history or National Register project. And the last program I want to touch on is Save America's Treasures. These projects are on buildings that are listed on the National Register for national significance. When you list a property on the National Register, it will be eligible for being locally significant, significant in a statewide manner, or for national significant. So this program is specific to those really major properties that speak to our national history. We can fund projects once with this program. Once a building receives an SAT grant, they cannot come back for another grant. This also differs from the other programs that it does require a one-to-one non-federal match. So if you apply for the $750,000, you will need to show in your application that you have that match to go along with it. We also can do collections conservation with this program. Can go to the next slide. The eligible applicants are states, tribes, local governments, and nonprofits. We will have around the same amount in 2024 to grant out. For collections conservation, we can go up to $750,000. And again, that collection would have to have some significance to national history. And with preservation projects, we can reach that same cap. These applications will be available this summer. And while we manage the building projects, IMLS will be who you would work with if you receive a grant for a collections project. And we even have more. We don't have time today to go through all of these, but I encourage you to get on our website and read the information and see if any of these programs seem to be a good fit for a project you are working on. Go to the next one. So how do you find out about these grants? You do need to be on grants.gov to apply, and you can set up a way to get a notice through that system, or you can go to this website and sign up for our bulletin, and we will send that out to let you know when we are opening these grants for applications, the deadlines, and how you need to go about applying. Here is my contact information as well as our general mailbox and voicemail. The QR code will take you to our website with information on the competitive grants programs, and you can just find a lot of great resources on our website. If you have a project that you think would be a good fit, please reach out to us. We would love to talk to you and see how we could help you apply and be successful. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mary, for your presentation. I am now going to turn that over to Miss Ariel Roy.
Thank you so much, Ashley, and to you, Mary, for your giving your presentations about the network and about StillPig. So I am Ariel Roy, and I'm serving as the ASALH partner historian for the African American Civil Rights Network. And in this portion, I will be discussing the ASALH and AACRN cooperative and what we have been working on so far during my time here. In this photo, you can see we have our very own Dr. Turkiya Lowe, who is giving a panel presentation at the 108th annual meeting and conference that was held in Jacksonville, Florida of last year. At this panel presentation, she is giving a discussion on the 25th anniversary of the Underground Railroad Network to Freedom, where she discussed the history and impact of the Network to Freedom program and a role that it has played on other National Park Service networks, such as the African American Civil Rights Network. And panel presentations and sessions such as this one is just one of the many examples of partnerships that the two organizations have between the two, which I will get more into. Next slide, please. So as Ms. Cyrus mentioned at the beginning of her welcoming remarks, this partnership goes way back to 2019, where the network unveiled its official logo during the 104th annual conference that was held in Charleston, South Carolina. Fast forward to 2022, Acorn officially became a member to the network. It entered as a program resource. This later evolved into ASALH becoming a partner organization with the goal of ASALH facilitating and collaborating with their membership and community at large on access on how to join the network, and involving ASALH in participating at public events related to Acorn. For Acorn, this partnership has allowed for the network to host exhibit tables, panel sessions, and more at ASALH-related conferences and luncheons. This year, ASALH officially welcomed its annual theme, African Americans and the Arts. This year also marked the return of the Black History Month Festival Luncheon, which took place in February. That was in DC of this year. At the luncheon, Acorn had an exhibit table where we were joined by a couple of our National Park Service members from National Capital Parks East. So that was the Carter G. Woodson National Historical Home, and as well as the Merrimack Bethune National Home. We are now in the planning stages of our 109th annual meeting and conference, which will commence on September 25th in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. For those who'd like to know more about the conference, I have attached the conference web link. This is the link for you guys to know more about the updates and any news that we have upcoming about the conference. Next slide, please. So what do these partnerships look like from ASALH's standpoint? First and foremost, we like to have information sessions like this one, and these information sessions are quarterly. Our next scheduled information session should be in September, and Ashley and I are working on the date, and when we get that date pinned down, we will be more than happy to share it with you guys when if you guys like to participate in any upcoming future information sessions. These information sessions always carry a theme of giving the basic information about how to join the network, as well as we might have different topics such as Mary's presentation on Stillpig. We might invite someone from the National Register of Historic Places for anyone who would like to know more about how to nominate a property or site to the register. We might also invite other ACORN related partners to learn more, and for you to learn more about how to learn more about what we do here in the network. An important role for me is to give guidance and assistance to ASALH members, potential members, and current members. So as Ashley mentioned in her previous slides, if you guys have if you guys would like any more information on the network criteria, on what property, facility, and or program you would like to see nominated to the network, application assistance, you can always just send me an email and I will be more than happy to assist you in your role in that process of getting an application started. It is important to note that ASALH branches are also eligible to apply. So that is, if an individual ASALH branch would like to seek membership outside of the main ASALH branch, that means if you want to take advantage of grant assistance, grant programs, cooperative agreements, or technical assistance, you are eligible to apply as an individual member of the network. Next slide, please. So what are the type of projects that we've been working on so far? First and foremost, we've been working with HBCUs and other higher education institutions. So we know of HBCUs, they are important based on their creation and the role that they played in educating African Americans. And so far on the network, we only have 2 HBCUs that are part of membership, and that is the Shaw University and the Virginia University Lynchburg. And we would like more. We would like to tell so much stories and promote the HBCU inclusion, whether it be a dormitory, a library, a research center. We would like to include all aspects of HBCUs into our network. One example of that, as I mentioned before, with a research center is the National Center for the Study of Civil Rights and African American Culture at Alabama State University, which is a member, while the university is not a member yet. And for non-HBCUs, we too know that there were sites of protest, sites of activism, student-led organizations. And we also with, you guys also might have civil rights centers, research centers, libraries. Another example such as that is the University of South Carolina. That institution is a member of our network as well as one of their research centers, the Center for Civil Rights History and Research, which serves as another one of ACORN's partner organizations. And as you saw on the map, as Ashley mentioned, we are looking for many sites within the Midwest and Western United States, because like she mentioned before, we want to encourage that geographical inclusion of African American civil rights histories and stories. So that might be stories of freedom-seeking individuals who ventured out west, homesteaders, stories of migration, land ownership, historic districts, historic communities, all that took place within the Midwest. We know that it's not limited to just the South and the Eastern portion of the United States. We also can provide assistance through ASALH for current ACORN members. So if you would like more information or help on if you would like to develop a historic marker or a trail, you want to do a workshop, want to create an exhibit, we can provide you assistance within the Park Service on who to connect with basically. So a Park Service historian, a National Park Service site that's doing similar work that you guys want to do. We can also give you that guidance as well. The next slide, please. And I have attached my contact information here as well, my work cell phone number, and my working hours. My times are Central Time Zone. I've also attached my contact emails, my ASALH email, as well as my NPS email. I prefer my ASALH email as I have greater access to the email than I do with my NPS email, but whichever you prefer, I am more than happy to answer either way. And keeping in tradition of QR codes, I have attached the QR code to the ASALH website. So if you guys would like a refresher on ASALH or any information on how to become a member of ASALH, the benefits of joining ASALH, updates about the conference, please send me an email or give me a call. And that is the end of my presentation. We can go to the next slide and open it up for questions and comments that you have for myself, Mary, or Ashley.
Thank you, Ariel. We will now open the floor. Oop, I'm so sorry. I did not mean to do that. We'll now open the floor for questions. There are a couple of them in the chat. Um, why is the timeline limited to 1939? So it is not limited to 1939. Civil rights can encompass any time period from enslavement to present day. That 1939 is for National Park Service units only. I'm assuming that you're talking about the steel peg slide with the QR code, Ms. Jackson. Is that correct? If you could type in the chat, please.
Yes, she
Okay,
sent them.
that's the correct
Mhm.
slide. So, if we could go back to the steel peg slide with the QR code and Ms. Shell's information. Yes, you all will be getting a copy of this recording. So if somebody has a question, can properties be privately owned? Yes, they can be privately owned. So your letter of owner consent will be a individual.
Actually, we have a couple of attendees who have raised their hands. So if we would like, we can get them to speak if that's okay with you guys.
That's fine with me, yes.
Okay, so Ms. Sandra Murphy. Took her hand down. Okay. Mr. Dave, you had your hand up.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Well, thank you for your presentation. My question has to do more with an area rather than a piece of property. I was born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri, and my earliest memories are from being in an area that was known as the Mill Creek area, that was in the shadow of Union Station, the train station. You spoke about, Midwest, migration and further west. Well, because it's situated there on the Mississippi River, it was a main route for transportation north and south, and then also it's known as the gateway to the west. Many people of color, of the African descent, who were migrating from the South, going north, like to Chicago or Detroit, someplace to try to find a good job, they would catch the train. And if you're anywhere near the Mississippi River, you're going to have to go through St. Louis. And many people only had enough money for a ticket to go to St. Louis, and then they had to get off the train. And this Mill Creek area was pretty much an all black contiguous neighborhood where people getting off the train could go find, if nothing else, a room for the night or, board someplace until they decide to either move on further north, or many people just, that's how they ended up settling in St. Louis. And that's what happened with my family. And so I know that the Park Service has the property down at the Arch, and there are many exhibits there. And I was wondering if there could be some way to provide an exhibit to show the history of the Mill Creek area and its importance to the Black migration from the south to the north, and how it fueled the Black population there in the St. Louis area. Would that area be eligible? US 40 is running through there right now. The neighborhood is gone, but the area is still known there in the St. Louis area.
So even if the area is gone, it can still be eligible for the network. Yes.
Okay, so I guess I'd have to contact her directly to figure out the steps for that.
Yes. So if you reach out to the general email inbox, AACRN at NPS.gov,
Hmm.
um, and we can, so if just give me a little more information, or any more information that you may have, as far as if the section of that town is on the National Register, or any any other pertinent information that may be connected to the civil rights movement, I can help you get started with the application. However, the QR code that we had on my last slide was to the application portal. You would have to create an account in order for you to start the application process.
Okay, and so once the application is started, then someone will communicate back and forth with me to decide whether or not we can move forward.
Yes.
Okay, so on the slide, what was the web address again? Is that on your the slide?
It is. Let me see if we can put it into the chat here.
Okay, let me lower my hand. Okay. Um, yes, thank you.
Okay, so next we have Dr. Lisa Brown. She had her hand raised next. Dr. Brown? Right. Okay. Okay, so we'll move on to the next. So Ms. Deborah, you have your hand raised next, so you have the floor.
Hello? Can
Yes,
you all
hello.
hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, we're able to
Oh,
hear
I'm so
you.
sorry. I'm driving and my daughter would kill me if she knew I was doing this. But I had a couple questions because I know that the speaker, at first I want to say thank you for this wonderful, wonderful presentation. I am so excited. And I understand we're going to get copies of the recording because the phone went out when I was traveling. But I do have a couple questions. When you talk about the American Civil Rights Movement, it basically ran between 1954 to 1968, but you said until present. So I wanted clarity on that. And then the other thing you said from slavery to present. So help me understand that, because as you know, prior to 1776, there was no United States. We were a colonial settlement. So I just want to get a good idea about where the timeline and the framework exists. I hope everyone heard that.
Yes, ma'am. So that the traditional civil rights movement, of course, is between that 1939 to 1968 date. However, African American civil rights spans from enslavement all the way through present day. African Americans have continuously fought for to be first class citizens and still continue to this day to fight for their first class citizen rights. So, hence the
Okay.
reason that we expand that timeline from those traditional years. So, anything, so freedom seeking is considered an act of civil rights. Um, any form of protest is considered an act of African American civil rights from enslavement or
Okay.
even rebellions. Um, so there are a lot of events that have happened throughout history that would encompass African American civil rights and would encompass the civil rights movement.
Okay. So would it start in 1776 or before? Because there was no America before 1776. I just want to be clear about that.
Uh, so the 1770, it will start really before that.
Okay.
Yeah, so even though we were just colonies, we were still, there's still African Americans or enslaved people were still fighting for their right for freedom.
Well, they weren't
Okay.
Americans, but they were Africans. That's for sure.
Yes, ma'am. So, yeah, so the point is that, they were still trying to gain their freedom.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. We have a few more questions in the chat. So Miss Rosalind, we are part of a national exhibit on Black cowboys. Is there a partnership through any of your organizations with the Smithsonian Museum Traveling Network? So we do have quite a bit of partnerships with the Smithsonian. I'm not quite sure I understand your question. If you're asking um, as far as us being a partner in order to for you all to apply to the network, I'm not quite sure um, of what you mean by that. However, if you are a part of the national exhibit on Black cowboys, that exhibit is eligible for the network. You would just have to apply as a program. Another question. If you would like to apply based on a program or museum focused on civil rights, would the owner for permission be the CEO or program director? It would be the director of the museum, or if you have a museum CEO, they could also act as the owner of the for the letter of owner permission. Um, I think okay. So projects, that's correct, Miss Lewis. Projects relate to 1619. Um, would be interesting for this as well. We have not gotten too many applications for that far back. But we would love to see them, as of course it does encompass the African American or the civil rights movement and the fight for first class citizenship. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions currently. Um, okay. Do you mind muting your microphone, please? Thank you. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat. Oh, I'm sorry. There is one more question. Um, yes. So as two more questions. I'm sorry. So yes, as a partner to apply to the network, that is correct. So if you have that exhibit, and you can apply to be a partner of the network. Yes. And does this include an executive director of a museum? Yes, Ms. Vasquez, it does include that.
I see a question about whether or not we could provide a grant for a cemetery project. And we have done some studies where they have done like ground penetrating radar and archaeological type work. And we've also done projects that restore the sexton's house if they have something like that, as well as repair markers.
Um, oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry, the chat rolled back down. So as far as sites in Pennsylvania, we just haven't had many apply. We would love for you to all to apply to the network. And it's not that any have been denied. We just haven't gotten that many applications. Mary, there is a question that I think may be more geared towards you. I would like to partner with the African burial ground here in NYC and a church built in 1829, which is registered as a landmark for its preservation of its slave gallery.
Right, that sounds like something that would very much be eligible. The project sounds like it already had some work. Sounds like maybe it's listed on the National Register, but that would be their first thing to do, would be to look into the National Register eligibility of the church and the burial ground. And then please reach out to us and we can talk about the types of projects we funded for burial grounds and churches.
Okay. And it looks like we have one last question. Just wanted to verify the network is asking about limited to 1939. So the network, no, the network is not limited to 1939 to 1968. That is only if you are a National Park Service site. If you are not a part of the National Park Service, that means that you anything from 1619 to today can qualify.
Actually, we do have a hand raised from Bertha Jackson. Bertha Jackman, please forgive me. You have the floor.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we're able to hear you.
Yes, hi. Thank you very much for taking my question. And I apologize for getting on late. I was in another meeting. And you may have already answered this question, but I see that you're recording. Will those who registered receive a copy of the recording? And also,
Yes,
and also information in the chat?
yes, you'll receive a copy of this recording. And when you say information in the chat, do you mind?
So, so in other words, everything that was in the chat, questions, answers, responses, that kind of thing.
That's a great question. I'm not sure if that shows up during the recording. I believe it does. However, any website links and all of that will actually be within that email that is sent out.
Very good. Thank you so much.
You're very
Please.
welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, there's one comment and a question. We would like to call attention to our ancestral participation in the Southern Underground Railroad. Is there one organization that will be most susceptible to the aspect of the undertold history at the Alexander Farm? That would be us, of course, at the African American Civil Rights Network. Also, too, they're not on here, but Network to Freedom as well would be a great space for you to all to check out regarding the Alexander Farm. But the African American Civil Rights Network, you all are more than welcome to apply for the Alexander Farm. It says not a comment, not a question. Just thank you to everyone involved for the session. My institution, Indiana University South Bend Civil Rights Heritage Center, is nearing completion on an application to the network, and we'll look forward to sharing that with you soon. Thank you so much. We look forward to seeing it. All right. Do we have any other questions for myself, Mary, or Ariel? All right. It looks like we are good. If we do not have any other questions, I want to say thank you all for attending this webinar today. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to myself, Ariel, or Mary Shell. We'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you have. Again, you'll be getting a copy of this webinar, and we look forward to seeing your applications.